So you're wanting to learn more about your purpose in this life, your life mission. Let's talk North Node in Leo. So I want to thank Sadie for providing her birth details for me to use her chart as an example. I'm going to be putting on the screen when Leo entered North Node over the years. So if you were born in between those birth dates, then you can get something out of this reading as well. So a little bit about astrology when it comes to your birth chart. So we look in a couple of places to work out where the mission in this life lies. Now primarily we're looking at the North Node, South Node, which is also called Ketu and Rahu in Vedic astrology. South Node is all about your past life and the life that you chose that you wanted to come back and work on something. So perhaps there was something in a certain past life that you feel like you could have done better, you didn't handle the challenges very well, you took it to a very extreme level, or perhaps it affected the people around you. So you've chosen that portion when it comes to reincarnating into this life to work on in this life. Now the idea here is to get balance. So you're wanting to get balance between the two signs, so the North Node and the South Node. So what you've done extremely in a past life, you need to pull that back and integrate the opposite into your life in this life. Now you also we want to be careful of not taking that to the extreme in this life, or you'll find yourself back again working on the opposite end. So anyway, we're going to take a little deeper look into what it means if you have Leo in your North Node, and that would mean you have Aquarius in your South Node. Now a couple of weeks ago I did the opposite, so today we're going to have a look at that in reverse. This is a very exciting chart that we're looking at today, and there's lots of excitement coming up in this chart. So we're also looking here at the second house and the 8th house, so really exciting. Those two houses, all houses have their certain degrees of interest, but I think the 8th house, we're going deep with this one. So let's get into this chart. So how this is going to work is we're going to do the reading on a very basic level, which will apply to anybody watching that has their North Node in Leo. Then if you know your birth chart and you know that you have your North Node in your 8th house, then you will get something out of this reading as well. We're then going to go a little further into a personalized reading for Sadie, and that's going to have some aspects. We're going to look at the aspects and look at the rulers of the signs as well, and that's going to take it a little bit deeper for this reading for Sadie. Now here's what I want you to remember about looking at your North Node, South Node in astrology. South Node, you come in with, sometimes it's trauma, you're coming in to work through traumas, so phobias, fears, traumas that you're needing to deal with in this life. Can be generational, it can be things that have come down through generational lines, it can be karmic DNA patterns, things that's come through the DNA. It also can be reincarnation, so you can look at this in any way that you're comfortable with, but what it means is working on something from the past and integrating that opposite into your life or existence right now. So South Node brings with it a level of comfort zone, because it's something you've played out already in another life or in the past, and you feel comfortable in that. You feel comfortable that you've done it before, you're experienced in it, you know it well, perhaps you did it in a very extreme way, so you know it well. So you feel very comfortable, so you can fall back into that very easily. Now with the North Node, it's the opposite, so it's something you feel perhaps fearful of, or something you just are not interested in, something that you struggle with, or something that you've really got to force yourself to do and to balance out. So the integration of the North Node can be quite challenging for some people. This chart has some challenges, so we're going to run through the challenges when we get through the aspects of this one. So you can see the squared, and we actually have a very rare placement in this chart. Now with chart reading in astrology, it takes a couple of hours to do a full chart reading, so we're just focusing on a very tiny part of a chart, and that's all about the missions and where the missions lie. So we'll take a quick look when we go into the deeper, more personalized side part of the reading, and we'll be looking at where the sun is, and also we'll take a look at the 10th and the 11th house and what's going on there. I can see some things playing out in the 11th house, which are very important in this chart on purpose, on the life purpose. So let's get into this reading. I'm also going to be using my cards today. I'm going to be using my tarot, which integrates so beautifully with astrology. Tarot and astrology just work hand in hand. So tarot is all about the elements, and so is astrology. So they work together really well. I'll also be using my astrology deck, oracle deck today, and I will be using my brand new life purpose deck. So this is going to help me focus on what's important in this chart, both for everybody that is North Node Leo, as well as a more personalized reading for Sadie. So let's get into this reading. Okay, I'm going to start here in the South Node, because we're wanting to have a look at what we're bringing forward, what it is perhaps that could have been an issue or a challenge, or something that was done in extreme, or something you feel like you perhaps could do a little bit better in this life. So we're looking at Aquarius. Aquarius in the second house. Okay, so second house, actually I'll come back to the houses. I want to keep this very basic, and I want to keep this where anybody that is North Node Leo will get something out of this reading from the beginning, and then we'll do the personalized part towards the end. Okay, so from the very basic part, the Aquarius South Node. Okay, that means in your past life you were an Aquarian ascendant. So I'm an Aquarian ascendant. So an Aquarian ascendant doesn't really care what other people think of them. They don't seek approval. They do things because they want to do it, and they do it because it is what they want to do. And I'm not trying to say it's not a selfish sign, whereas the Aries is more about, doing something for yourself and really focusing on yourself. Aquarius is more about doing something because you want to do it, and it brings joy to you, and you don't care if it's not what everybody else is doing. You don't have to fit the mold. You don't have to feel like you're fitting in with everybody else and doing what everybody else is doing. In fact, you probably prefer to be not part of the herd. You prefer to sit on the sideline, or you prefer, for some people, they feel like they perhaps don't fit in. They haven't been able to fit in, and for others they feel like they don't want to fit in. It's like they don't want to follow the crowd, or they don't want to follow fashion trends and wear what everybody else is wearing. Opposite to that is Leo. Now Leo is all about fitting in, and wearing the clothes, and being in interested in what fashions, and wearing the clothes that stand out and doing fashion really well. Whereas Aquarius don't really care. They'll put anything on, and it's like, well, I'm happy to wear this today. This makes me feel comfortable. This is what I'm going to wear today. So Aquarians are more, they don't seek approval. They only seek approval from themselves. Whereas Leo like to fit in. In fact, they got really good leadership skills, so they can actually be trendsetters, and people follow them. But it's really important to have that approval from the herd or everybody around them. So this is what we're looking at here as a bridge for these two signs. One is they like to stand out in a crowd. They like to be part of a crowd. They like to be, up on the trends and what everybody else is doing, and have approval from everybody else. And the opposite end is don't want to be part of that. And not interested in being part of the fashions, and not interested in following trends that everybody else is following, not interested in being part of a crowd, or feeling like they have to do something because everybody else is doing it, or that they need approval to do what they want to do. So that's the opposite ends. We're looking at someone that needs approval, someone that doesn't want approval, or doesn't care about approval. So that's the opposite ends of what we're doing here. So with the South Node, perhaps you did one in a very, very extreme way. So we're talking Aquarius here. You may have done your Aquarius in a very extreme way. So you could have been not, so far removed from humanity that you just didn't have the connections. You could have taken things to the extremes, and I'm using it as an example here, say conspiracy theory. So, and I love that stuff. I'm right into that, but I try to be careful not to. And it's difficult as an Aquarius. Everything I see, I think there's something wrong here. I have to question it. I have to think, what are they up to? It's like, I'm not going to do that because you're making everybody do that. To me, that's like, and I'm thinking about recent things that have happened to humanity, and it's like, as an Aquarius, you're like, okay, well, I don't trust what you're doing. I don't trust that everybody's taking part in something, or everyone's being forced into something. There's something going on here. There's something wrong. And as an Aquarius, you start to look like, okay, I don't want to do what you're telling me to do. In fact, I probably want to do the opposite of what you're telling me to do. So if you're doing Aquarius to the extreme, then you're really removing yourself from that human experience, that being part of a crowd, being part of a clique, being part of, fitting in with other people, and going with the flow and being part of trends and, getting along with everybody. Now, I know this is the 11th house. It's got energies of the 11th house because it's Aquarius. Aquarius is the 11th house. So it has energies of community. So with Aquarius, they are rebellious and they're revolutionary. So they are part of community, but part of a community that is perhaps on the sideline. So they do like to form communities, but they like to form their own communities. People that have the same interests, people that are, perhaps a little bit rebellious themselves, or, don't want to fit into the crowd themselves. So they do have that sense of community, because it's 11th house energy here of community, but it's like they don't need approval, and they perhaps can be a little bit revolutionary or rebellious. Aquarius is also about technology as well and innovation, so it can be quite innovative. Here you're looking at the eclectics, the inventors, the ones that are a little weird, the ones that are on the sideline and people look and think, they're weird, they're very eclectic, but in fact, they're probably brilliant. And this is not all Aquariuses, obviously, but this is an example. I'm thinking like Albert Einstein. I'm not sure where his Aquarius is or what Aquarius is. I've never actually looked, which I will do one day. But I'm seeing somebody that is different, quirky, and very inventive, and that's a very Aquarian thing. So that's an example there. So being very extreme, and a reason why you would need to come back and do a part of that again. What would that be? That would be that you neglected to have a human experience. Have an experience where you went with the flow and you were really part of what is going on in this world. You're part of that, and you didn't sit on the sidelines, and look at people being different to you. So you were really, that's the thing with the Aquarius to the extreme, is that you feel different and you feel like you don't fit in, and you feel like for some of you, you don't want to fit in, you don't care, you don't need to fit in, but it's that to an extreme level. It's like you're so far removed from a human experience, and because you just don't want to fit in, or you just don't fit in. So that would be something you would want to come back and do again. I want to come back and I want to be part of society. I want to be a big part of society. I want to, I want to shine in society, and I want to really, be noticed. And where Aquarius don't care if they get noticed or not, Leo do. Leos are very shine my light. I want to shine my light and help others. I want to be part of others, and I want to bring joy to others. I want to, really good leadership skills. I want to roar, and I want to be heard. So that would be what you would be coming back to. You would have to be careful in this life not to take that to the extreme, not to take your Leo to the extreme. So being too dominant or controlling, or I'm the leader, you follow me. So, or I can't function without somebody else's approval. Everything I do has to have the approval of everybody else. So that would be taking that to the extreme. So what you want to do is find a nice little center, a nice little balance between these two signs. So you're coming in with experience of being an Aquarius, an experience of being on the fence or in the background or feeling like you don't fit in. Qualities that you could be bringing in as an Aquarius would be inventiveness, or even revolutionary. Revolutionary is a quality. It is something where the world needs change, and the Aquarians want to bring the change. So part of what you could be bringing in is where we're looking at needing change in the world we live in right now, that those with the Aquarian energy from a past life, you've got those skills. You've got those skills to make the change. You've also got to integrate having a following, as in the Leo leadership skills, and you can integrate having those revolutionary or inventive or innovative kind of skills and bring it to the people, and people look at you and want to follow what you're doing. You want to shine your light to help others, and be part of others, but you can bring those skills, the Aquarian skills, to the world for change that the Aquarians want, and the Leos know how to present that. They have people like them, they want to fit in. That's very important. Now here's the thing with Leo, because you're not experienced in the Leo energy, you could be struggling to feel like, again, you could be feeling like you don't fit in because you have that Aquarius South Node, that Aquarian past. So you could have struggled to fit in. Perhaps you've rectified that over the years, and you've learned to adapt to that, which is what the idea of this life is. You want to learn to adapt and integrate Leo energy into your life in this life. So you want to try and work with people and be part of community and be part of the public. And Leo is also very fun as well. It's a 5th house, so it's fun. So it's all about, shining your light, being joyful, having, integrating joy in your life, where Aquarians can, as an extreme, when we talk South Nodes, we have to talk a little negative, because why else would you be coming back to rectify that problem? So as an Aquarius, if I was talking that someone's ascendant in this life, I would talk about all the positive things about why Aquarians are positive and what's positive about an Aquarian. But when we're talking South Node and past life, we have to talk about perhaps what was a little negative or dark side of that trait. So where the Leo needs to learn to shine and needs to learn to share their joy and their light with others, Aquarians held that back. In the past life, they held their light back. They didn't want to stand out, and that's something you could be bringing in as a comfort zone of, you could be fearful of crowds. This is something you've got to learn to overcome in this life. You've got to learn to be part of other people, be part of groups and fashions and doing what other people are doing, and exerting yourself as a leader or somebody that is a role model to others. So somebody that can stand up and shine their light. And you've got to learn to integrate the two. So you've got to learn to integrate perhaps your inventiveness or your quirkiness or your wanting change and rebellion and revolution. So you've got to take that not to the extreme, just into the middle, where as a Leo, people like you and they'll hear you and you need to be heard. So this is where you get to integrate the two. You get to be part of a change in a way that is, you're one of the crowd, you're one of them, you're like everybody else, you fit in, people understand what you're saying because you're just like everybody else. So therefore, people will listen to you and people will follow you. And that's what Leo is. It's all about trying to integrate in this life the need that you need to be heard. Because perhaps as an Aquarian you weren't heard. People just thought you were weird or you were quirky, and they didn't listen to what you were saying. So in this life, as a Leo, it's about not being fearful of that, not being fearful that people are going to look at you like, oh, you're just weird, or you're just this, or you're quirky, or they don't. You've got to learn to let that go in this life and understand that people will respect you if you command respect. So it's about commanding respect and feeling like you fit in and feeling like you've got something to contribute to society, and that's what's really important there. So I hope that makes sense. Let's pull a card on that. And now I also want to tell a little story here about Leos as well. So as a past life, I've done past life regression in my past, and one of my past lives I was a lawman. I had like those little white pants on and that little white wig, and I called myself a lawman, but I condemned witches to the stake. So I know a lot of psychics in this life will say, yeah, I was burned at the stake in a past life, or walled up in walls. I know that I was on the opposite. I was one that did that to people like me in this life. So I feel like it's very important in my life now that I am doing the opposite. I am trying to integrate them. For me, the balance for me is not being one's extreme to the other and trying to do that in between. I'm coming back as a witch, basically, to understand that witches aren't bad. So whereas I would have condemned them in one life, and I would have had that Sagittarian, because I'm a Sagittarian Sagittarian Gemini bridge for my north node, south node, but I am an Aquarian, so this is why I fit and can relate to this reading, is because I'm an Aquarian ascendant, whereas in a past life you would have been an Aquarian ascendant, so you would have been a little bit different. And what you've got to integrate in this life is being part of, perhaps, for example, a community that condemned you in a past life. Perhaps you were a witch. Perhaps you were considered a witch. Perhaps you were a healer or a herbalist or a midwife, and you were looked at by a large community or a large portion of elites or higher ups or whatever they were. They looked at you like you were a witch and you were condemned. So now in this life, you've got to come back into this life and integrate with those people. So you're part of that this time. You're part of bringing balance there, bringing bringing that justice of where this happened to you in a past life. So this is what I'm saying. A lot of psychics feel like they have had that happen to them in the past. So in this life, they feel like they're living their life perhaps fearful of the occult. Now we've got some 8th house in this chart, so we're going there. This is where we're going. 8th house is all about the occult and going very deep, and so this is where we're going in this chart. So this is why I'm bringing this up as an example. So perhaps you were one that were condemned or were looked at as a witch or a weird kind of, or a midwife, or you were not, they didn't consider you part of the normal community. You were different, or you were condemned in some way. For your lifestyle choices, you were condemned in some way. So in this life, you're coming back and you're mixing with all kinds of people. You're coming back into the community. You're coming back in where you're not segregated into a group. So whatever segregation that formed or was made up of, you're coming back into this life to be part of the main group and be part of that, and kind of form like I'm trying to see if there's any. We've got the the Chiron down the bottom, so we'll come back to that and we'll see where that lies here. That is the healer. So we're looking at traumas that we're bringing in. Perhaps this could have been one of the traumas that you're now learning that you need to integrate and not hold against the people that did that. You're coming to be part of that. I'm not saying that you're coming to condemn witches. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you're coming on a level of forgiveness and understanding that there's a place for everybody in their birth, in their path and their purpose. So everybody has to do and feel something. So it's like you're whole when you've done it all. So it's like if even the shadow, we're integrating shadow in this reading because we're 8th house. So we have to integrate the shadow. We've got that Scorpion energy here in this chart as well. So we have to go deep and we have to go dark with this one, and we have to face fears in this reading. So it's all about coming to a place where you can understand that it makes you whole to experience many different things. And it's not about holding it against people, and people are all playing out all kinds of things in their lives, and I know it's sad, and that's what people say, why would I choose to come back as X or Y? Well, it's because you're coming back with tendencies that you're learning to deal with, and it's how extreme you take them. So whether you can take those tendencies or those darkness, those shadows, which we're looking 8th house or Scorpion energy there, and how extreme do you take them? Are you taking them to the extreme level, and therefore you're having to come back and replay that out in the opposite, in a way where you have to kind of balance those energies, or are you just integrating that shadow and understanding that it's part of you, and you don't have to take it to the extreme, but you have to understand that we all have a shadow, and we all have pleasure seeking, because we're looking 5th house Leo energy here as well. And 5th house as a Leo north node, it's all about, to a level, you're looking at pleasure, joy here as well. You're looking at it can be infidelities as well in the 5th house. It's all about where you're taking them, or if you're taking them to the extreme, or you're pulling back and just taking them and bringing joy and just focusing on the joy in life. So it's all about levels of how far you take things, and that's why you may need to come back and integrate the opposite into the life. So that little story about me being an Aquarian now, me being in that little outer edge, is where you were. And I was, in my past life, I was the one that instigated. I called myself a lawn man, is how I said it. And I remember walking in that life. I remember walking along, I'm not sure what it was, it's like some big square area, and I'm walking along, and there was like the hanging frames and stuff like that, and I would condemn people. I would be giving the orders. So that's kind of Leo-ish as well, that giving those orders in that way. So, but in public opinion, so in that public opinion arena, whereas those people that were being condemned were more Aquarian. So you can see how me coming back in this life as an ascendant Aquarian is where you would have been in a past life as an ascendant Aquarian. And then in this life as your North Node, you're therefore kind of integrate some of that community, that Leo energy of, you know, rulership and being part of the greater whole, the public opinion. Public opinion is absolutely the right word there. Let's pull a card for all of you Leo North Nodes. Okay, what I've pulled for you, Leo North Nodes in this life, I've pulled the Sun energy. Sun energy is all about expressing yourself, shining your light, being an example for others, being someone that when you shine, others shine. So you're very generous with your energy, and when you can shine your light, others benefit from that. So this is what the Sun energy is. The Sun is the ruler of Leo. So in a chart reading, we would look at where the Sun is in this, and that's a very important part of the mission, because the mission here is Leo and the ruler of Leo is Sun, and we're bringing in the Sun here on the tarot to say that part of your life purpose here is to shine your light, and that shining of your light benefits other people. So where you perhaps were fearful in a past life of shining your light because you would be condemned, or you would be ostracized, or you would be put in a group of considered not part of society, weird in some way, or whatever, or being different to other people. In this life, you've got to learn to find your voice. You've got to learn to be heard. You've got to learn to shine your light, because people do want to hear it. People want to see it. So, and as eliminating that fear of putting yourself out there. So with the Aquarian energy, if you would have put yourself out there as an Aquarius, you could have been condemned. You could have been hung as being a witch. So, and that's an extreme example, and that's not the example for everybody, but that's just an example so you can understand where I'm going with this. Whereas in this life, you've got to learn that it's okay to put yourself out there. It's okay to be seen as who you really are. It's okay to be part of everybody else and to shine your light, because others benefit from that, and they like that. They will find joy in that, and that's what the Sun is all about, joy. The World card's also here, but it's in reverse. So here we're looking at difficulties with completing this purpose. So we're looking at the difficulties here lie in the fears of putting yourself out there, the fears of being seen and being heard. So this is where you could be finding difficulty as a North Node in actually putting yourself out there, because you've got those deep set fears of not being accepted, or people not understanding what you're saying because you're coming in from being an Aquarius. We're also looking at the King of Swords here. Now the King of Swords is just telling us you need that King energy. So this is a non-gender specific reading, but it's saying that you need to stand in shine in that sovereignty and that rulership kind of energy. So the king is a great ruler, a great leader, and you need to learn to share and be shine as a great ruler or a great leader. I'm not saying you're royal or anything else because you're Leo. You could be the head of a company, but if you've integrated Leo well in your life, but it's asking you to stand proud, be a proud lion, stand proud in who you are and shining, and let people see who you are. Let people see you shine, because it benefits other people. We're also looking at the Three of Wands. It is in reverse, but I feel like it's letting me know that it's about joy here. The three of Wands is about joy. It's about being with other people, collaborating with other people, and it's about finding that joy and that harmony and that sense of being part of something and celebrating and fun, because Leo, the 5th house, is fun. It's about finding joy and fun in the life. So the Three of the Cups is indicating that part of this life mission is for you to learn to find joy in your life, and learn to find it by collaborating with others, or being part of others, and not being scared that you won't be accepted for who you are. Okay, with the cards, it's asking you not to hold on to any guilt that you're perhaps bringing forward from any extreme measure that you've taken in a past life. So letting go of traumas or fears and releasing those, and it's like letting them go and understand that they're coming from past lives, or they're coming from the past, and here is where you're needing to let them go. You've had to build almost like a tough shell around you, is what I'm picking up in these cards as well. It's almost like you've built in your past life a tough shell around you to protect yourself. I know as an Aquarian you don't need that approval, but it's almost like it's like there's a glass wall between you and everybody else, and that's what it's asking you to break down that toughness, that toughness that you've developed from that past life. You need to break that down and be vulnerable. You need to put yourself out there in community or around other people, because you'll get great benefit out of it, and so will everybody else. So it's breaking down those walls that you put up in the past, is what these cards are saying, and learning to be part of community and being part of others. And opening your heart to other people, that beautiful big Leo generous heart, it's about opening that up and sharing with others and finding joy in life, and that's really where your mission is lying here, expanding that. So, and it's also, you've got the card of just letting you know that whatever you're doing on your mission, it just wants to remind you that you're doing it well. You're doing well. So it's difficult sometimes with some missions, and it's really hard to step into that North Node energy, but it just wants to give you a reminder that you're doing well. So yeah, that's my little reading for you, North Node Aquarius. So let's take this a little bit deeper. We're going to be looking here at the houses that they lie in. So if you know your houses, then you will know this. You can get a little bit about this information as well. Okay, we're looking at North Node in the 8th house. So here we're looking at that Scorpion energy, that going deep, that going dark. So I did touch on this a little bit. Now this can be here coming into this life with control issues around control, issues around, okay, for one thing, it's the occult. So as I already touched on, perhaps you were, condemned to burn as a witch, or you were fearful of that. So, you couldn't show your face as being into anything like this because you were scared of that. And you could be still bringing back some of those fears in this life, as not deep down, you don't want to put yourself out there because you are fearful something might happen to you, that just from past cycles of what has happened to different people. And it's not just witches or psychics, it can be anyone that was ostracized as being different to everybody else. In this life, it's about being part of everybody else. Now 8th house is about, as I said, we're going deep here, we're going dark, we're going where others fear to tread. So that thing is things like the occult. You could be interested in things like true crime, looking into those deep, dark things. You could have a fascination here, but we're looking at 8th house as your path, your mission. So you could be somebody that helps solve crimes, or you could be somebody that in this life you've got to learn to integrate that into your life. And this is a house of death as well, so it's about integrating death as well, and understanding death as a part of life, and integrating that into your life, and knowing that it's just a cycle, and it's part of life. Death is just part of life. It's, like I said, one to the other. It's just different degrees of the same thing. So here we're looking at the 8th house. It can be the occult. So pushing yourself in this life to shine your light as the Leo. This would be personal, having the Leo and the 8th together, would be shining your light in the areas of the occult. For instance, for example, even though you may be fearful of putting yourself out there and shining that beautiful light, is because you had those you had those fears from your past life because of what happened to psychics and witches back then. So in this life, you would need to shine your light, being Leo, in those areas of, say, the occult. It can also be control issues. So when we're looking at anybody that has the 8th house, it's the North Node, you could be facing things with control about, perhaps, it's about sharing with others, or because it's opposite the 2nd house, which is your Taurus energy, and Taurus energy about wanting to feel safe, wanting to feel secure, not really pushing yourself much past having the basics and just feeling safe and secure, and not really pushing yourself there out on an outer edge. So you had, as long as you had shelter and food, and you didn't really take anything to the extreme. Whereas Scorpio or 8th house energy is more extreme. It's about pushing the boundaries and going to the edge, and it's going beyond safety, and that's what 8th house purpose is about. So it's about pushing yourself beyond comfort zones, pushing yourself beyond just your basic level, feeling safe and secure, taking things to the next level, going a little deeper, going deeper into things, and not being afraid, and facing. It's also about facing fears, because it's about being fearless. It's a very fearless sign. It's about going deep in, and it's emotional, because it's a water sign here. The 8th house is a Scorpion water house. We're here only talking 8th house at the moment. That is about going deep on an emotional level, and taking and learning from that, and growing from that, and integrating that into your life, going deeper, going darker, occult, control, money, sexuality. It's all, and could be like true crime, those kind of things, which is death. So it's about incorporating these things into your life, to understand that life is just a cycle, and life is just a polarity between one and the other. 2nd house, for those of you that have 2nd house as your South Node, could have been a life where simple life. You just had to make sure that you had what you needed. You perhaps were a farmer, or a fisherman, or worked the land. You could have been part of a tribe. You could have just been they're very connected to animals, and connected to the earth. It's an earthy sign, the 2nd house. So it's about being part of a community, or in a way that all work together with the earth, with the animals, and work that way. So coming in from the 2nd house, you're holding values of being able to support yourself, being able to look after yourself, being able to have enough to feel that you're valuable, but also that you can survive. It's a survival house, a house of basic survival needs here in the 2nd house. So with that energy coming in from where your comfort zone is, going into a life of purpose, being 8th house, you have to go to the edge. You have to go beyond just your comfort zone. You've got to push the boundaries a little bit, and I would say this is probably one of the harder ones. The 8th house is probably, I would think, would be one of the harder ones to have as a life purpose, because here we're integrating shadow. We're integrating the shadow side of yourself, and understanding that we have to experience a many things and varied things, and understanding that it's part of polarity, and it's how extreme you take it. So taking it to a way that you can push yourself a little bit, or integrate that side of yourself, instead of being perhaps judgmental, judgmental of others. It's about accepting that part of yourself, not taking it to the extreme, because you will end up here back again. So it's about not taking it to the extreme, that shadow side, but understanding and not neglecting that shadow side, understanding that shadow side is part of you, and it's part of everybody, but it's for you. It's something you're dealing with in this life. So let's pull a card on those people with the 8th house for their purpose in this life. Okay, sensitivities here. We're learning sensitivities, and don't be afraid. So it's saying don't be afraid, and you've got to take more risks. So the card's actually saying that part of your being an 8th house mission is about being able to take more risks, stepping out of just being that Taurus kind of safety zone area, and it's about, you know, being fearless, because we have a saying, don't be afraid to take more risks. That's the 2 cards here. Don't be afraid to take more risks, the 2 cards here. Take this reading a little bit deeper. Now, Sadie has provided her details, and I thank you, Sadie, for that, but I've run your chart twice. I think maybe for some reason I've put 2 different times in your chart. I don't know if it was on different messages that you sent me that had different times, or I just entered the wrong times in on one of those, but I think I've picked the right times. I picked 11:58 as the birth time. It's very, very important that we get that birth time right, because if we don't, it just changes the chart dramatically. Like, it's completely different when it comes to aspects and what houses your mission sits in. So your mission is always going to be Leo, because that's you're fitting between the certain dates that you were born in. So you'll get that part of the reading. It will be part for you, just like it will be for anybody that has a Leo North Node. Your mission in this life is Leo energy. Whereas if you provide your birth time, then that gives me more structure on what house it falls in. Now, I think I've got it right. I hope I do. And if I don't, then it means you're not really going to understand this at all. So I'd appreciate any feedback of how you understand this reading, Sadie. But you've got to remember here that North Node is things that you perhaps don't feel comfortable doing, you don't have experience in, you don't understand it, it scares you perhaps. And I feel like the 8th house, if you are the 8th house and I got that time right, then it's pretty, you have to be pretty brave. You've got to be pretty brave to face fears and push yourself beyond your comfort zone here. Now, in a Leo kind of way. So in a Leo way, meaning be not afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to be to look into the occult, which is, your psychic abilities and, card reading and mediumship, and all mediumship definitely, because it's part of dealing with the other side. So here we're looking at going very deep, and it's about not being afraid, because that's what that 8th house is all about. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go deep and to go dark and to integrate that part into your life, the occult. It could be, and shine your light here. And you're shining your light here because in the past life of the Aquarius, you were maybe ostracized for doing that, and now you feel fearful of actually putting yourself out there and claiming yourself to be a witch or a psychic or whatever else you want to call it. Now that's an example. When I say witch or psychic, it could be anything. It could be any area that you were perhaps ostracized for because you were different. Perhaps you were a scientist that was quirky, and now you've got fears about having ideas or coming up with ideas because you're scared that people will think you're weird. So it's that sense of, you maybe did it to the extreme in the past life, or perhaps you were condemned for it. But in this life, it's about facing your fears and really being brave to actually shine your light. And that's a big deal. It's a big thing to shine your light and say, this is me, this is who I am, I want to help, I want to be generous, but I feel fearful that I'll be rejected, or I'll be ostracized, or be looked at in a way that's different to everybody else. So it's really about stepping into that bravery and that being fearless to be who you really are and shine your light, because people will benefit from that. So that's where we're looking at the mission. Now, with the 2nd house past life, you have your Saturn conjunct with your South Node, which means your Saturn would have been sitting next to your ascendant in your past life. So that is the Aries, which means you were in some way restricted or constricted. So Saturn really brings things down. So perhaps you felt like you couldn't live your life the way you wanted to. You had to follow rules. You had to be what you may have lived in society showing that face of being like everybody else, but really deep down you were nothing like everybody else. You had that Aquarian energy, but for some reason here it's showing constricted or restricted. You were restricted to be your true Aquarian self, your true rebellious or inventive or different. You were different, but you were restricted from living that life to the fullest. Restricted. You couldn't be yourself fully, for whether it was fears. It could have been fears. You could have lived in the time of the witch trials, and therefore you couldn't shine your light. You couldn't show yourself to be your true Aquarian different self, because there was that you were constricted or restricted from being who you really were out of fears of being condemned as a witch. So that's just an example. As I said, with the witch trials, it's an example, but it's showing up quite strongly in this chart, especially with the restrictions. You were restricted in your life. You couldn't be exactly who you were because there was restrictions, and those restrictions could have been placed on, even could have been placed on your income, because this is how you make your money, your second house. So there could have been restrictions on you feeding yourself or feeling safe. You may have not felt safe. If you were being your true, authentic Aquarian self out in the open, you couldn't feel safe. You couldn't feel secure, because perhaps you could have been condemned, or you lived with that. You lived with that restrictions on being able to be your true self. Perhaps it resulted in not being able to feed yourself or your family. It may have resulted in say, for instance, you might have been a medicine person that made herbal medicines, and people were too scared to come to you to buy product from you because they would have been seen as, fearful themselves to be part of that, and that restricted you making money. So here we're looking at second house, how you made your money, but it's also how you were valued, and how you felt safe and secure. So you've got that level in your chart as well of it. There was restrictions to making money, restrictions to feeling safe, restrictions to feeling like you had enough, or you could be yourself. You could be your true Aquarian self here. Okay, so that Saturn energy opposes you in this mission. So not only are you facing fears and you're stepping into the darkness, you're integrating the shadow, you're being brave, or you're needing to be brave, you're needing to integrate these things in this life, you're needing to be brave and show yourself, shine your light, even though you're fearful of that, you're fearful of rejection, you're fearful of how other people see you. On top of that, you've got Saturn energy opposing that. So Saturn energy is restricting you from, being your true self, and that could again come in from your traumas from your past life and making you feel restricted in this life. So it's about, we did see the card here of letting those traumas go, letting them go, and understanding they were part of your past life, and in this life you don't have that, but you are carrying forward a level of restriction in this life, a level of duty as well. Saturn's also about duty, so it's bringing the okay, now what it can be also is something like you want to shine your light at who you truly are, but perhaps you've got a job where you can't do that. You can't show yourself to be weird, or you can't show yourself to be into what you're into, or whatever that is. But there's a level there of Saturn. Saturn is a holding back. It's holding back. So it's saying that perhaps it's making it difficult for you, or providing challenges for you to shine your light, not only from traumas, but from perhaps your life, this life, like your job that you have. It could be anything. The people around you in this life may not agree with it, and it's some kind of restrictions on you shining who you truly are, because perhaps there's people in your life that don't agree with that kind of thing. Whatever you're into that's shadow work or occult, it may not be what other people believe in. So for you, that's putting another hurdle in you shining your true light, because you're now having to take the Saturn energy of being restricted because you're maybe fearful of what other people think, or you can't show that in your job, or for whatever reason there's a level of restriction of, again, not only from past life, but it's showing in this life that there's some kind of boundaries or hurdles that you're having to face to shine who you really are, or to be into whatever you're into, and be proud of that and incorporate that and be brave to step into that energy. I want to talk here about the Grand Cross. It's a rare sign. It's a rare aspect in astrology, but you've got it. You've got the Grand Cross. You've got Neptune in the Scorpion energy at 12 degrees. You've got your North Node in Leo in 15 degrees. You've got Venus in Taurus, 13 degrees, and then of course you've got your south node, also 15 degrees in Aquarius. So we're looking at the fixed signs here. The fixed signs is where you want to dig your heels in, and perhaps you'll be a little bit stubborn or a little bit unbudging or unmoving. That kind of fixed energy, which you've got a grand cross, a fixed energy, as you digging your heels in on an area and not moving or not budging or not changing in some way. So if we were to narrow this down a little bit more, we're looking at your north node being your mission is squared by Venus and Neptune. So Venus is all about love and beauty, and you know that, so therefore squaring is causing a little bit of a hurdle there for you carrying out your mission as well. Could be about we're looking at joy. It's in the 5th house, the Venus energy about the 5th, so it's a level of joy. So there could be restrictions there about not finding joy because for some reason you're too scared to show your real interest or be who you really are. There's a level here of restrictions in that way. 5th house joy, 5th house creativity even. Perhaps you want to be really creative in a really weird way, or you know, in a very psychic way, or you know, psychic drawings or spirit guide drawings, or you know, that's very creative. So that lots of things in the spiritual industry are very creative because you're using that part of your brain. But I'm also seeing Venus, which can be, and why I say art is because Venus is a, you know, luxury and beauty and art and all of that kind of things. So where 5th house is very creative, we've also got that Venus of, you know, beauty and art and all of that kind of thing comes into that area as well. So that is causing a square to your north node. So it is a little bit of a sacred hurdle that you're getting over here as well. It's a sacred. Now, if you're not playing out one of these areas well, like with a grand cross, you kind of need to play out all of these areas well. Otherwise, the whole thing just falls apart. It all affects each other. They're all affecting each other. So your Venus and your Uranus is affecting your south node and your north node. So if you're not playing them all out in the best way that you can, you're going to find issues here. So I'm seeing here, so we've got beauty, Venus being viewed, beauty, love, you know, luxury, art, those kind of things. You need to incorporate that into your life in a 5th house way of creativity or joy. So that's really important, that you need to integrate that into your purpose this life. So then we have Neptune. Neptune is in the 11th house. Neptune's in the community house. So Neptune's all about, you know, not having boundaries between the spiritual world and the physical world, and being really open to them in a community way. So finding community, finding a group of people, or finding, you know, even on social media, people that are into the same thing as you, and that is really helpful and beneficial to you. Finding that way of knowing that you're not alone, and that, you know, we're not just physical beings, we're more than that, we're bigger than that. And that's really important. Perhaps you could teach that, perhaps you could shine your light, being Leo, shining your light in community. You could be, you know, hold circles or groups or healing, or integrate that in your life in that way. But it's another important aspect that needs to be brought into this life. You have to be balancing your Neptune energy, which is your without boundaries, not just being physical body, and the boundaries also can relate to your 8th house as well, of where you're going deep into those things that perhaps other people are too scared, where others fear to tread. It could be about those boundaryless things. You know, people might be scared of thinking outside of us, you know, putting your faith in the universe. People could be scared to do that, and you're really needing to integrate that into this life as well. Putting your faith in the universe, putting your faith in God, that's all part of that energy there as well. So that's what's really important to you. Having a look your Aries for your sun. So we're looking at your sun because that's the ruler of your north node mission, and that's your sun, and you're in Aries. So Aries is all about being a go-getter. It's got it conjunct with Mercury here, so it's a very tight conjunction, and that's all about communication. So it's about communicating. It's in the house of family, in the house of your foundation, your inner self, your upbringing, who you really are, you're integrating that into your life. It's also about family and home. Finally, so the sun sitting there in Aries is about being a go-getter, a person that's wanting to get in and get things started, get things done, make things happen, communicate, because you've got conjunction with your Mercury. So that really helps your Leo path, it helps your placement as being your life purpose being Leo, because you need to be heard. So having your Mercury conjunct your Sun is saying that you need to shine your light, express yourself, you need to be heard, you need to communicate, and that's really very important. So I'm just going to finish off the reading. I'm just going to pull a couple of cards for Sadie for help with her mission in this life. Go. This one comes jumping out. So it's all about getting that balance here as well. So one thing I didn't mention about the 8th house. The 8th house is about sharing deeply with others, and about integrating. It can be sharing money with others. It can be sharing yourself in a very deep and personal way with others. So this card has come out just to remind me that it's all about working with other people on a give and take. So here we've got some control issues about, for instance, if one person has a job and they're paying all the things, it's where that level of the other person may feel a little bit controlled. So there's some kind of energy here about give and take, and balancing that energy of who's in control, or where do you give away your power, or do you feel powerless? Do you feel like perhaps you're being too dominant, or you're overruling someone, or you're too controlling in situations? So you've got that level here of having to balance out that give and take when it comes to sharing yourself with somebody in a very deep and personal way. That could be sharing your money, sharing yourself, sharing parts of yourself with another person. So that card came jumping out in a big way. Here we're looking at self-awareness and about really understanding. It's funny, you've got the social acceptance card, so that's a big part of your path here. As your journey and your mission here, Sadie, is a very big part of it. Is about being self-aware of who you are, what your gifts are, what your light is, and shining that light to others, but in a very socially accepted way. So it's about being socially accepted for whatever it is that you're interested in, your interest, or understanding what your gifts are, what you're good at, or what you're into, and then shining that light out to others and being socially accepted for that. So that's a really big part of your plan here. Really a beautiful chart here, Sadie, and I hope that I've picked the right time for you, and I hope that makes sense. So please leave some feedback. Let me know if you're working towards your mission, what you're doing to integrate these things into your mission, or if perhaps you're still in that boundary, in that fear of putting yourself out there. So let me know how that goes, and I look forward to your feedback. So if you're wanting to have your chart done, I do need to have your birth time, your birth date, and your birth location. I cannot get the aspects and the houses unless I have all of those three things. Thank you for joining me.